Welcome to Lesson 1, Numerical Expressions Using Addition. Our objective for this lesson is using addition, students will create numerical expressions without evaluating. Let's revisit the vocabulary from our previous lesson. In this lesson, we will see numerical expression, parentheses, total, more than, the sum of, increase by, and in all. Here are a few examples of what you will be looking for and what you will be creating. The first numerical expression that we see is 2 plus 3 plus 6 plus 2. The 6 and 2 are in parentheses. What does this mean? From our previous lesson, we remember that parentheses means that that problem is done first. Everything outside of the parentheses is to follow. Let's continue on to parentheses 7 plus 3 and parentheses plus 1. Here we see that the 7 plus 3 is in parentheses, which means that that is a problem that we evaluate first. Next we have 5 plus 8 plus 2 plus parentheses 3 plus 4. In this numerical expression, we see that 3 plus 4 is in parentheses, which means that that is what we evaluate first. And lastly, we have parentheses 1 plus 1 plus 6. In this numerical expression, we have 1 plus 1 in our parentheses, which means that that is what we will evaluate first. So what does this all mean, and what does this look like in a word problem? We will go over 3 examples in this lesson. From these examples, you will be asked to create a numerical expression based off of the information provided. Let's take a look at example number 1. Mrs. Reyes loves to read. She wants to start a classroom library. So far, she has 3 books. She orders 2 books on Amazon. Her friend said she would give her 5 books on Friday. How many total books will Mrs. Reyes have in her classroom library on Monday? Let's use our skills that we know about word problems. The very first thing we want to do is to look at our question. Our question asks us, how many total books will Mrs. Reyes have in her classroom library on Monday? Let's go back to our vocabulary. One of our vocabulary words is the word total. As you can see, the word total has a lot to do with addition, which means that in our problem, our question asks us for the total number of books that Mrs. Reyes has in her classroom library. This gives us the idea that we will be using the operation of addition. The next thing we want to do is we want to look for the information that we can pull out from our problem. The first thing I want to look at are the numbers. She wants to start a classroom library. So far, she has how many books? She has 3. Then, she orders 2 books on Amazon. That is another piece of information that's important. And lastly, it says that her friend said that she would give her 5 books on Friday. This is the information that we can pull out of our word problem. So we're going to take our numbers and we're going to put them into a numerical expression. As you can see, here we have our information, our 3, our 2, and our 5. And lastly, we have the total number of books, and that is what we are looking for. So what does this look like? Well, we can start by putting our numbers in a text box. We are going to put the number 3 and 2 and 5. Now, I put them in order as how I read them. That is important when we are writing numerical expressions. We want our numbers to be in order. Next, we want to figure out what expression we're going to be using. It asks us, how many total books will Mrs. Reyes have in her classroom library? Therefore, this numerical expression should reflect that. In this case, the total number of books is going to ask me to add these three numbers together. So that is what my numerical expression will look like. Let's take a look at example number 2. Mrs. Reyes slept a total of 8 hours on Monday. On Tuesday, she slept the sum of 4 and 2 hours. How many hours did she sleep in all? Let's take our skills for example. Let's pull out the information that we need in order to solve this problem. Think about our vocabulary. We have seen in all, and we have seen the sum of. In our vocabulary, we have the sum of, and we have in all. This means that we are going to be using addition as our operation for this problem. The next thing we want to do is we want to look for the important information that we need to solve this problem. Since we are only creating numerical expressions, we're not going to do any evaluating because that's what our objective told us. But what we are going to do is we're going to pull out the information that we need in order to solve the problem. She slept a total of 8 hours on Monday. On Tuesday, she slept the sum of 4 and 2 hours. So those are the numbers that we're going to be looking for and needing for our numerical expression. We said we were going to highlight the 8 and highlight the 4 and 2. Again, we're looking for the sum of 4 and 2, and we're looking for how many hours she slept in all. So what might this look like? Let's take our numbers and we're going to put them in a text box. 8, 4, and 2. Let me make this a little bigger for you so you can see it. From here, we need to figure out what operation we're going to be using. It says how many hours did she sleep in all in our question. In all tells me that the operation I will be using is addition. And since I have 3 numbers here, we're going to start with 8 and 4, and we're going to add that together. Also in our problem, we see the sum of 4 and 2. The sum of 4 and 2 tells me that I'm going to be adding this together. So I'm going to add these together as well. Let's take a look at example number 3. Mrs. Reyes signed up to play basketball. She practices basketball for 2 hours in the morning, 1 hour in the afternoon, and 2 hours at night. What is the sum of the hours practiced? Let's use our skills for evaluating word problems. The very first thing we need to do is look at our question. What is it asking us? It is asking for the sum of hours practiced. This automatically tells me that I'm going to use addition as my operation. The next thing I need to do is I need to look for the important information in order to solve this problem. I'm going to take out the numbers that I see. She practices basketball for 2 hours in the morning. She practices basketball for 1 hour in the afternoon. And she practices basketball for 2 hours at night. This is the information that I will need in order to solve this problem. Let's highlight again what we will need to solve this problem. We need the hours practiced, and we need to understand that we are looking for the sum of the hours practiced. So what might this look like in a numerical expression. Let's put our numbers into our text box. Because our question is asking us for the sum of the hours practiced, we're going to take the 2 hours that she practiced in the morning, the 1 hour in the afternoon, and 2 hours at night, and we are going to simply add them together. Now my next question would be, how can we change this numerical expression to fit my parentheses? Well, here we have another example. Mrs. Reyes practices 2 hours increased by 1 at school and 2 hours at home. What is the sum of the hours practiced? So let's take our problem here, and we are going to highlight the important information. Let's take a look at our question. What is the sum of the hours practiced? We know that for our numerical expression, we will be adding. So far, we can use what we previously wrote in our numerical expression for example 3. 2 plus 1 plus 2. But now it's asking us a different question. Because she practices 2 hours increased by 1 at school. Increased by 1 tells me that I'm going to add these together first, because school hours happen before she goes home. So what we will do is we will take our 2 and 1 and put them in parentheses. Mrs. Reyes practices 2 hours increased by 1 in the morning at school and 2 hours at home. Now my numerical expression reflects that she practices at school before she practices at home. That is the end of our lesson for today. Please let me know if you have any questions or you need clarification.